Today we're going to be replacing the scroll valve in an AC compressor on a 2007 Saturn Vue. A similar scroll valve problem can occur in many other vehicles such as Expeditions, Explorers, Fusions, Jaguar S-Types and more. So without using any AC manifold gauges, there is a quick test you can do to work out if you have a faulty scroll valve in your AC compressor. The first thing, just start the car, put your blower onto max, put it on full cold, use the center vents right here, and also put your AC on and in recirculation mode. When the car's left to idle for a few minutes, it's just not putting out cold air at all. However, when you rev your engine to 2500 RPM or thereabouts, you'll notice the AC starts blowing really nice cold air. So that's the one main symptom of a faulty scroll valve in an AC compressor. So that's why you may notice you get nice cold AC on highway drives, but not necessarily when you drive around the town. So without any additional equipment such as manifold gauges and test equipment, you'll probably notice you have really poor AC at idle, and when you get on the freeway and get over 2500 RPM or so, your AC cooling is really good. On this car, it's a typical problem with the scroll valve which lives inside the AC compressor. If you do have a set of AC manifold gauges and you hook them up, you'll probably notice that your low side is really high, around 80 psi, and your high side is really low, under 200 psi. When you rev the engine itself and look at the gauges here, you'll probably notice the low side comes down to around 35 and the high side up to 280. It's a typical symptom of a poor scroll valve and it needs replacing. So this is the scroll valve here, this is the new part, this is the inlet here and the outlets on the other side, and what happens, it can just kind of get clogged and not operate as a valve. So the scroll valve just backs off displacement of the compressor to get more economy. It bleeds some refrigerant when it's not needed. However, when it's in bypass mode and stuck there, you won't get good cooling at idle. So we need to replace the scroll valve inside the AC compressor. So the first thing you should do is take your car to a garage and evacuate the AC system completely. Evacuate it responsibly because refrigerant is damaging to the environment. Now the AC system has been completely evacuated, we should have zero pressure in the system. We're going to just check our manifold gauges to make sure that this is the case. If you're unsure on how to use AC manifold gauges, check out the link in the description below where I show you how to connect them and use them and diagnose AC systems. So on the 2007 Saturn Vue, the low side is over here, just on this line here. Connect the low side coupling here. Link up your manifold gauges, ensure these are tight, use Teflon tape if necessary so we're getting no air escaping. And on the high side it's over by the fuse box, right over here, it just comes out here. Okay, now turn on the valves here, all the way open, and same on the low side, all the way open. If the system is fully evacuated, we will read 0 on both of the gauges. So now we're all hooked up, valves are open, we can see we have absolutely no pressure in the AC system, so it's safe to say it's fully evacuated. Alternatively, just get some long nose pliers here and push down on the shroud valve. There's absolutely no pressure or anything in that line. So we need to gain access to the compressor. On the 2007 Saturn Vue, we don't actually have to remove the compressor from the vehicle. Now the compressor's just down here. It's more accessible from under the vehicle. So place the vehicle on jack stands here. I've just put 2 either side and supported the front with a jack for safety right there. And our compressor just lives under the car through this hole right here. You can see the pulley for it right there. So we're just going to remove the air box right here. It's one 10mm bolt right here, and just a flat head and loosen this one fully right here. Don't bother with this one. Disconnect the airbox tabs here, and also at the back right here. Free the airbox from its other half below. You can just move it back and forth and it will come loose. Pull the ductwork out of the hole below where there's a rubber bung pushed in. Then you can pull off the entire assembly, rotate this clockwise and pull it out of the vehicle. Remove the air filter, give that a little clean. Now disconnect the sensor here. That does various readings on our airbox right here. And also remove this bolt here. It's a 10mm again. With the bolt out, you should just be able to pull this box out of the car. There's a couple of rubber bungs on the back there. So now we're going to remove the serpentine belt, drive belt, auxiliary belt, whatever you want to call it there. So the tensioner is right here. We're just going to slip a 14mm socket over it and pull it to the left. That will take the tension off the belt and we can pop it off the alternator cog right there. Note its orientation. The belt goes under the tensioner, over the crankshaft pulley, down and under, around the AC compressor, up around the alternator pulley and back under the tensioner. It's kind of hard to see, but you get the idea. So a little tip here, I always put arrows there with a paint marker to denote which way the belt goes on. If you're going to reuse the old belt, always put it on the same orientation it came off, otherwise it can develop a squeak or something like that. So just a little tip there. So the belt here, I've left it on the crankshaft pulley and I've just shoved it out the way. The only thing we want to access is the AC compressor, which is that one right there. So now we're going to go under the car and remove the mounting base for the AC suction and discharge hoses. Make sure your car's safe, give it a little shake, chock it off, handbrake on and climb underneath. So looking at the AC compressor here, I've put my socket over the mounting hose that you need to disconnect right there. It's 10mm. So it's a little fiddly to get that one out, but just get sort of like a little low profile socket wrench there and it should come out easy. Then just use finger power to get the rest of it off, otherwise you'll get your sort of wrench stuck. I think there's probably some Loctite on there, you can see where it's sort of rusted now. So yeah, it will be a bit of a pain to get out, but it's better than pulling the radiator and going in from the front. So the first 13mm bolt is just behind this electrical connector here. You can remove this, there's a little tab in the front here, it just pops right out, and the bolt's just right here, 13mm. You can access it from the corner of the car like you did the 10mm bolt in the mounting plate right there. Okay, so I'm on a car with the radiator removed, so I've got really good access here, so I can show you. On top of the compressor we have one bolt going all the way through, bolts the compressor firmly in. Another one at the top there, where it says N8.8, there's two there. There's also one down there, it's a little bit caked. So first 13mm bolt out there, that's the top left one. Now we're going to do the top right one. Leave the bottom one in till last, because that ensures we can get the top two out easily, and also we're going to use the bottom one just as a pivot. We're not actually going to take that out, so we're just going to rotate around the bottom one. So if you haven't already, just bring this mounting plate away from the compressor just by literally prying on the pipe here, and that should separate the plate from the compressor. So when we rotate the compressor, it's not going to rotate all these non-flexing pipes with it. So now we're going to go for the top right bolt. I recommend something like a U-joint just so we can sort of snake it in from this side here. Again, with this disconnected, the mounting plate disconnected, you can sort of manipulate it just a little left and right, just so you can get access to the top right bolt there. So the easiest way to get the top right one is just come in through the middle here and just get a flat closed end wrench on there. Something like that, 13mm, 1/2 inch. Just come up there and I'll go upwards. There's not enough room for a socket up there, so this is your best bet. So now the top two awkward ones are out, we're just going to remove the bottom one now. So what I want to do is just take this mounting plate here and push it towards the front of the car and upwards, and that'll allow our compressor to just sneak by this metal bar here and sort of drop down until it's stuck behind this bar here. And now we have access to this panel right here, and this is where we can replace our scroll valve. And to remove that backing plate off the back of the compressor, it's just two 10mm bolts. Once you have it loose or sort of the bolts off, it's sort of spring loaded, the valve is, so be careful when taking the components out of there. And now the plate's off, you can see the valve, which is spring loaded, just poking out. you can remove that, and also the filter, which is this sort of black piece here. It's like a long rod, and the gasket as well. If it your new one will probably come with a gasket, so you can pull that out, and also the spring itself we can pull out as well. So here are the old parts against the new parts. Always compare your old with the new. Make sure they're exactly, correct. Same with the scroll valves here. So this is the new one here, this is the old one, this is the actual scroll valve itself. The spring, you can sort of transplant that onto the new one. Clean the backing plate up. Again, you might want to put some anti-seize on these if they're a bit rusted and bad. And then we're going to assemble it, exactly how it was before. If there's a problem with your spring, they should have about 25 pounds of pressure on the spring in case you're looking to replace that. And here's the filter as well. Again, I'm going to put this one right back in. It's supposed to sort of act as a filter. My new valve didn't come with one, so I just wanted to take it out to sort of show you the filter and what it looks like. So I've just cleaned them off with a bit of brakes parts cleaner. It'll do. The old one absolutely clogged. I tried to blow some air through this and getting nothing out the other end, so that could be why it's actually broken in my case. Again, yours might be different. So we're going to put the gasket in first. Just use some residual oil. It's coming out of the compressor, just to lube the gasket and place it back in. Make sure the mating surface is nice and clean so we can reinstall the components and we'll get a nice clean seal on the back of the compressor. So now everything's in there, we're just going to put the backing plate back on and reassemble back into the car. So compressors on, belts back on, just putting the air box in now. Don't forget your sensor. We're just going to put all this ductwork back and then we're going to recharge the system. Alright, so everything's back together now. If you're not sure how to recharge the refrigerant on the car, check out my video. I've linked it in the description below. It covers everything you need to know about recharging an AC system with lots and lots of tips as well on any vehicle. So I hope this helped with your scroll valve replacement. Thanks for watching and good luck with yours. Alright, there it is, just behind the driver's light there. You see it's just bolted in with a couple or 10mm there.